Hello, everyone. Welcome to Say It.
Hey everyone, so happy you are here with us today. I am Mike.
And I am Sarah.
Good to be here.
Mike, if your manager sent you an email and it said, "Your work is excellent. Nevertheless, we need to talk," how would that make you feel?
Honestly, a little nervous. That word nevertheless sounds very serious, very formal.
It does, right? But what if the email said instead, "Your work is excellent. However, we need to talk"?
Still a little nervous, but somehow slightly less heavy, a little more normal.
Okay, and now what if a colleague just stopped by your desk and said, "Hey, your work is excellent. I do want to chat though."
Oh, that feels completely different. That feels almost casual, like it is not a big deal at all.
Same message, three completely different feelings. And Mike, that is the whole episode right there.
So today we are looking at three words that every English learner has seen. However, nevertheless, and though.
All three of them mean something like but. They're all in the but family. They all connect two ideas where the second one is surprising or different from the first.
But, and this is the key, they do not belong in the same places. They live in completely different worlds.
One of them belongs in your academic essays and formal reports. One belongs in your professional emails and business writing. And one is the word native speakers actually reach for when they're just talking.
And it is probably not the one you think.
So by the end of today, you will know which word to use, where to use it, and why the feeling changes so much depending on which one you choose.
Let's start with nevertheless. Even the word sounds serious, doesn't it?
It really does. Nevertheless is the most formal of our three words today. You will find it in academic writing, in newspaper articles, in formal speeches, and in professional reports, but you will almost never hear it in everyday conversation.
Right. Nobody is going to walk up to you at lunch and say, "The sandwich was good. Nevertheless, I am still hungry."
Nobody talks like that.
Nobody. So when you see nevertheless, think writing, not speaking.
Now, let's talk about what it actually means, because nevertheless is not just a formal version of but. It carries a specific feeling that but does not always have.
And that feeling is something happened despite a real obstacle.
Exactly. The first sentence gives you a reason why something should not happen, a challenge, a difficulty, an obstacle, and then, nevertheless, says it happened anyway.
So there's always a sense of persistence or surprise, or something working out against the odds.
Let me give you some examples and see if you can feel that.
Go ahead.
Many people said it could not be done. Nevertheless, she finished the marathon.
So the obstacle is people saying it is impossible, and nevertheless says she did it anyway, against the odds.
Right. Here's another one. The project was over budget and behind schedule. Nevertheless, the team delivered on time.
Again, the obstacles are the budget and the schedule. Nevertheless says they pushed through anyway.
And one more. The weather that day was terrible. Nevertheless, 500 people came to the event.
The obstacle is the weather. Nevertheless says people showed up in spite of it.
So every time you see nevertheless, ask yourself, is there an obstacle in the first sentence? Is the second sentence surprising given that obstacle? If yes, nevertheless is doing exactly the right job.
Now, a quick thing about how to write it correctly. Nevertheless works the same way as however when it comes to punctuation. It needs a period or a semicolon before it, never just a comma.
So you can write, the weather was terrible. Nevertheless, 500 people came. Full stop, new sentence, comma after nevertheless.
Or, the weather was terrible, semicolon. Nevertheless, 500 people came. Semicolon before, comma after.
Both are correct. And nevertheless almost always sits at the beginning of a new sentence or clause. That is its most natural home.
Now there is a word that sounds very similar, nonetheless. And for the purposes of today, treat them as the same word, same meaning, same formality, same rules.
Completely interchangeable.
One small thing to watch out for. Some learners write, but nevertheless we kept going. And that sounds redundant. But and nevertheless are doing the same job. You only need one.
Pick one or the other, not both. Either, but we kept going. Or, nevertheless, we kept going.
And how do you say it? 4 syllables. The less. The stress falls on the last syllable. The less.
There is also a th sound in the middle, the same soft th as in the and this. Nevertheless.
And here's a memory trick that might help. Nevertheless is actually 3 words joined together. Never, the, less. As in, this is nevertheless true no matter what came before it.
I love that. Nevertheless true.
So, nevertheless, formal, written, used when there's a real obstacle in the first sentence and a surprising or determined outcome in the second. And always period or semicolon before it, comma, after.
Now let's move to the middle of our spectrum. Less formal than nevertheless, more professional than casual. The word you probably reach for when you want to sound polished in an email or a report.
However, this is the one most learners reach for when they want to sound professional.
And it works really well in that space. You will see it in business emails, news articles, and professional reports.
But here is where it sits on our spectrum today. It is less formal than nevertheless, and it is more formal than everyday conversation.
So think of it as your professional writing word, your careful, polished email word.
And the meaning is simpler than nevertheless. However, is just a neutral contrast. It says, on the other hand, here is a different idea.
No obstacle implied, no pushing through against the odds, just here's the other side.
So compare these 2 sentences. The project was over budget. Nevertheless, the team delivered on time. That has a real obstacle, a real sense of persistence.
Now listen to this one. The restaurant was expensive. However, the food was excellent. That is just a clean, simple contrast. No big obstacle, no surprise.
Just, on the other hand, the food was great.
Exactly. A few more examples. She worked very hard. However, she did not get the promotion.
Sales went up this quarter. However, costs also increased.
The hotel was not in a great location. However, the rooms were beautiful.
Clean, neutral contrast every time.
Now, this is the part we really want you to pay attention to, because this is the mistake our student made at the start of today's episode. Do you remember what she wrote?
She wrote, I understand your feedback. However, I will revise the conclusion by Friday.
And the problem is that comma before however. 2 complete sentences are sitting on either side of it, and a comma alone is not enough to connect them.
Here's why. Think about the word but. But is specifically designed to join 2 sentences with just a comma. I was tired, but I went anyway. That works perfectly.
However is a different type of word. It cannot do that. It needs more than a comma before it.
So what are the correct options? There are 3. Option 1, use a full stop. I understand your feedback. However, I will revise the conclusion by Friday.
Option 2, use a semicolon. I understand your feedback. However, I will revise the conclusion by Friday.
Option 3, just use but. I understand your feedback, but I will revise the conclusion by Friday.
All 3 are correct. The rule is simple. However, always needs a period or a semicolon before it, never just a comma.
Period or semicolon before, comma after, every time.
Now, one more thing. Sometimes you will see a sentence like this. However hard she tried, she could not convince him. And you might think, wait, where is the comma after however?
This is a completely different use of the word. When there is no comma after however, it does not mean but, it means no matter how. However hard she tried, no matter how hard she tried.
The comma is your signal. Comma after however, it means but. No comma, it means no matter how.
You do not need to produce this second meaning right now, but you will see it, and now you will not be confused by it.
And one last thing, however sits most naturally at the beginning of a new sentence. It can go in the middle of a sentence too, with commas on both sides, but at the end of a sentence, there is honestly a better word for that job.
Which is exactly what we are talking about next. The most surprising word of the three, the one native speakers actually use when they are just talking.
Though. One syllable, simple spelling, and honestly, the most useful of the three for everyday spoken English.
And here is the thing that surprises most learners. Native speakers almost never say however in casual conversation.
Almost never.
When they want to add a contrast in everyday speech, they reach for though.
So though is doing the same job as however, just in a completely different world. Think casual conversation, not formal writing.
Now, though actually has two different jobs in English, and it is worth knowing both of them.
The first job, though, works exactly like although. It introduces a contrasting clause inside a sentence.
So you can say, though it was raining, we decided to go out. That is the same as although it was raining, we decided to go out.
Or, she came to the meeting though she was exhausted, same as although she was exhausted.
Though and although are interchangeable in this role. Though just sounds a little more casual.
And in this role, though goes at the beginning or the middle of a sentence, not at the end.
Now, the second job, and this is the one that will actually change how you sound in conversation.
Though at the end of a sentence.
This is what native speakers do constantly, and most learners have never been taught it.
When though goes at the end, it works like however. It adds a soft contrast, like an afterthought, like you just remembered something worth mentioning.
So instead of saying, the movie was long, however, it was interesting, a native speaker would just say,
the movie was long, it was interesting though.
Hear how natural that sounds, how casual?
It is the same meaning, but the feeling is completely different. However sounds like a formal report, though at the end sounds like a real person talking.
A few more examples. Our team lost. It was a good game, though.
The hotel was not in a great location. The rooms were beautiful, though.
I did not get the job. It was a great experience, though.
Every time, a soft contrast added at the end. Casual, natural, conversational.
And there's a quick test you can use. Replace the end of sentence though with but at the start of a new sentence. If it works, you are using though correctly.
So, it was interesting though becomes, but it was interesting. That works perfectly.
Now, though at the end is also how native speakers soften a refusal or polite decline.
So, imagine someone says, would you like something to eat? And you have already eaten. You could say, I'm fine, thanks. It looks delicious, though.
Or, do you want to join us tonight? I cannot make it this time. Thanks for asking, though.
The though at the end keeps the warmth in the conversation. It says, I appreciate it even if the answer is no.
Now, there's one more use of though that you'll hear in conversation, and it sounds a little different.
Sometimes one person says something and the other person responds with a short question using though, like this. That restaurant is amazing. Is it though?
That is it though means really? I'm not so sure about that. It's a gentle way of expressing doubt.
But flip it to the negative, isn't it though? And the meaning completely changes. Now it means, yes, absolutely, I completely agree.
So, that restaurant is amazing, isn't it though? That's emphatic agreement.
Positive question plus though, gentle doubt. Negative question plus though, emphatic agreement.
You'll hear this pattern constantly in films, TV shows, and real conversations, and now you'll know exactly what it means.
One more thing, pronunciation. Though is just one syllable. It rhymes with go and no and so.
And watch out for the spelling. The letters O-U-G-H are pronounced differently in different words. Though rhymes with go, but through rhymes with blue, and tough rhymes with stuff.
Same letters, completely different sounds. English spelling at its finest.
It really is something.
So, though, casual, conversational, flexible. At the beginning of a sentence, it works like although. At the end of a sentence, it works like however, but warmer and more natural. And in short responses, it can express either doubt or emphatic agreement, depending on how you phrase it.
Now let's put all three words side by side and see exactly how they compare.
Same situation. 3 different words. 3 completely different feelings.
Here is the situation. Someone studied really hard for an exam, but they did not pass. Let's hear it 3 ways.
First, she studied for weeks. Nevertheless, she did not pass the exam. How does that feel?
Formal, almost like a news report, and there is that sense of, despite everything she put in, this happened anyway.
Now, she studied for weeks. However, she did not pass the exam. How about that one?
Still formal, but the obstacle feeling is gone. It's just a clean contrast, one fact, then the other.
And now, she studied for weeks. She did not pass, though. How does that one feel?
Completely different. That sounds like something a friend would say to you. Casual, conversational, real.
Same information, same meaning, 3 completely different worlds.
So here's the simple way to think about it. If you are writing an academic essay or a formal report, nevertheless or however are your words.
If you are writing a professional email, however is your safest choice.
And if you're just talking, just having a normal conversation, reach for though at the end of your sentence.
And if all else fails, just use but. It works everywhere.
But never lets you down.
It really does not. Now, before we finish today, let's quickly look at 3 mistakes that are very easy to make with these words. Because knowing the right word is one thing, using it correctly is another.
All right, mistake number 1, and this is the big one.
The comma splice. Someone writes, I understand your point, however, I disagree, and they think it sounds professional.
But that comma before however is not enough. However is not but. It cannot join 2 sentences with just a comma.
So fix it with a full stop. I understand your point, however, I disagree. Or a semicolon. I understand your point, however, I disagree. Or just use but. I understand your point, but I disagree.
Period or semicolon before however. Always.
Mistake number 2. Someone writes, although she was tired, but she came anyway.
And that but needs to go. Although is already doing the contrast work. You do not need but as well.
So just write, although she was tired, she came anyway. 1 contrast word, not 2.
The same rule applies to though. Though he tried, but he failed, drop the but. Just though he tried, he failed.
Mistake number 3. Someone writes, despite of the rain, we still went out.
Despite never takes of, never. The word you are thinking of is in spite of. That one has of built in.
So either despite the rain, we still went out, or in spite of the rain, we still went out. Both are correct, but despite of, never.
3 mistakes: the comma splice with however, the double contrast with although and but, and despite of.
Avoid those 3 and you will sound a lot more natural straight away. Now let's bring everything together.
3 words, all in the but family, all expressing contrast, but living in completely different worlds.
Nevertheless is your formal written word. It carries a sense of obstacle and persistence. You will find it in academic writing, formal reports and speeches.
However is your professional middle ground. Clean, neutral contrast, perfect for business emails and careful writing. And always period or semicolon before it, never just a comma.
And though at the end of a sentence is what native speakers actually say when they are just talking. It is casual, warm, and natural.
So next time you want to sound more natural in English, skip however in conversation, add though at the end instead. That one small change will make a real difference.
And if you are ever unsure which word to use, just use but. It works everywhere.
It really does. If today's episode helped you, please subscribe to Say It wherever you are listening right now. It genuinely helps us reach more learners just like you.
And leave us a comment. We would love to know which of these 3 words you find most confusing.
We will see you in the next episode.
Goodbye.